Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 177 based on novel. So let's start. Junior Pavilion Chief, the area in front of us is the territory of the Yang Alliance. Based on our speed, we should be able to reach the mysterious yellow sky stream by evening. A white-robed elder swept his eyes around after landing on the mountain. He spoke to Xiao Yang beside him with a respectful tone. Xiao Yang slightly nodded. His eyes swept over his group and involuntarily smiled. This powerful lineup might not be extremely powerful within the Central Plains. However, in this northwestern region of the continent, even the stomping of their feet would cause the earth to shake. According to the latest news, adding up the experts of the Profound Lion Sect, the Hall of Souls, and some others who have been coerced, they have around 30 or so individuals who have reached the Dozun class. On the other hand, the Yang Alliance has, at the very most, 10 of them. The number of experts that both sides have is completely disproportionate. That white-robed old man paused before continuing. They also have 30-plus Dozuns, Xiao Yang gently crossed his fingers. His face revealed an expression of contemplation. Although the quality of the experts in the northwestern region could not be compared to the Central Plains, they should also not be underestimated. After all, this continent was extremely vast. The Hall of Souls was naturally able to find some experts to aid them by using some tactics. Hence, Xiao Yang was not surprised that the Profound Lion Sect would have so many experts helping them. On the other hand, the strongest person in the Yang Alliance when he left back then was Cai Lin, who had been a 4 or 5-star Dozong. After these years of training, she probably reached the Dozun class. After all, she possessed the bloodline of the 7-colored heaven-swallowing python, and her original talent was quite great. She would naturally be able to gain twice the results with half the effort when she trained. However, regardless of how strong Kailin was, she was only one person. Xiao Yang's expectations were far exceeds when he learned that the Yang Alliance possessed 10 elite Dozun. This kind of strength could be considered a top-tier faction even in the Central Plains. One could imagine just how swift and fierce the Yang Alliance had developed over the years. How many experts at the 6-star Dozun class or higher does the Profound Lion Sect have? Xiao Yang hesitated for a moment before suddenly asking. The gap between every star within the Dozun class was extremely large. For example, if Xiao Yang were to face 10 1-star elite Dozuns, they would not be able to cause him much harm. The Profound Lion Sect should have 8 people above a 6-star Dozun. There are 4 among them who have reached the 8th star of the Dozun level. However, we do not know if the Hall of Souls has secretly sent any stronger people. The white-robed elder replied. Thank you, Elder Xia. Xiao Yang nodded and softly responded. Junior Pavilion Chief is too polite. Let's go. We'll increase our speed and try to reach the mysterious yellow sky stream before evening. Xiao Yang softly exhaled. He immediately waved his hand and his toes pressed on the ground. The space in front of him fluctuated, and his body slowly disappeared. The large group behind him was unsurprised when they saw him disappear. Each of them moved their bodies and shot forward. Rumble. Dense dark clouds covered the sky above the mysterious yellow sky stream. A low rolling thunder sounded and resounded unceasingly within a 50-kilometer radius. The permeating black fog gradually scattered outside the mysterious yellow fortress. When the black fog scattered, it revealed a countless number of figures hidden within it. The endless sea of people stretched to the horizon as shocking battle cries spread from the army in a deafening manner. Even the mountain range began to tremble because of these battle cries. Countless warriors from the Yang Alliance stood on the towering fortress walls and watched the sea of people in the distance with grave expressions. The Yang Alliance might have met many enemies while it had expanded over the years, but not once had it been suppressed to the point that it could not retaliate, until now. Everyone let out a long sigh in their hearts. Their eyes shifted slightly before finally pausing on the middle of the wall. A pretty figure stood proudly at that spot. She was wearing narrow and tight-fitting red armor. The hard armor had difficulty hiding the alluring curves of her snake-like waist. Even at this moment, her cold enchanting face did not reveal the slightest weakness. During these years, this woman, who was so beautiful that she appeared like the devil, had led the Yang Alliance out of the Jiomar Empire to create one of the strongest factions in the northwestern corner of the continent. She had allowed the Jiomar Empire, which was originally a relatively small and weak empire, to gain a place in the northwestern sphere. In the hearts of some of the Yang Alliance's experts, her position in the Yang Alliance was one that no one could truly replace. From a certain point of view, even the founder of the Yang Alliance could not reach her status. Are they finally about to attack? Kailin's long eyes stared at the black fog that had scattered in the distance. Her hand slowly wrapped around the long sword on her narrow waist. She pressed her red lips together as her face was covered with an ice-cold decisiveness. Kailin, you should grab Xiao Xiao and leave should we fail to block them. Xiao Ding sat on a wheelchair. His eyes looked at the permeating black fog from afar as he softly spoke. This is third brother's child. Nothing must happen to her. Xiao Li by the side also revealed a grave expression on his face as he spoke in a deep voice. Cai Lin shook her head when she heard the words of those two. She turned her head and looked beside her. There was a little girl in white clothes there. The little girl appeared to be 4 or 5 years old. She appeared like beautifully carved jade and was extremely cute. There was a small 7-colored snake symbol on her brows. Her large dark black eyes contained a spirituality that caused one to feel the desire to hold her. One could be mesmerized by her. Only when one recovered would one quietly feel awed. She already possessed such an unusual enchantment at such a young age. Would she not be even more bewitching than her mother when she grew up? Kaylin looked at the little girl. A doting expression appeared in her narrow icy eyes. She knelt down and gently hugged the little girl. The little girl seemed to be aware that the atmosphere was not quite right, but she did not cry. Her little hands hugged Kaylin's long neck as she said in a crisp voice, "Mummy, there is no need to be afraid. First uncle said that father will return." Kaylin curled her mouth when she heard this. She hugged the little girl before lifting her head a moment later. She looked at the little fairy doctor and softly asked, "Will he really return? He should require about half a year in the heavenly tomb. Counting the time, he should have already left the Gu realm. Yarrow Larrow will definitely inform him about the problems here once he reaches the Falling Star Pavilion. Given his character, he will hurry over as quickly as possible." The little fairy doctor nodded as she replied. Kaylin gently blinked her eyes but did not speak. Her hand gently patted the little head of the girl in her embrace. After which, she stared at little the fairy doctor and said, "Should the fortress fall, you should grab Xiao Xiao and leave. If anything happens to her, I will never forgive Xiao Yang no matter what he does, even if I die." The little fairy doctor was slightly startled. She searched Kaylin's tightly pressed mouth before quietly nodding. She was clearly aware of Kaylin's character. She was always haughty and would definitely do what she claimed. "Kaylin, you have already done too much for the Yang Alliance and the Xiao clan during these years. If we can successfully get through this, I will definitely get Xiao Yang to formally marry you into our Xiao clan." Xiao Ding by the side softly sighed when he saw this act before speaking in a deep voice. He had witnessed all that Kaylin had done for the Yang Alliance and the Xiao clan during these years. Back then, Xiao Yang had founded the Yang Alliance, only to throw this a big burden onto Kaylin's shoulders. He was aware that Xiao Yang had to leave in order to rescue their father, but Kaylin, being a woman, had not only helped him give birth to a daughter, she had even helped manage the Yang Alliance. This kind of sacrifice was extensive. Big brother is right. Once that little fellow returns, we will definitely resolve this matter. Xiao Li heavily nodded. Both he and Xiao Ding had always viewed Xiao Yang as the most important person of the clan. This time around, they would definitely side with their sister-in-law no matter what. "Let's first get through the trouble in front of us before talking about this." Kaylin placed little Xiao Xiao, who was still in her embrace, down. A black-clothed young figure also surfaced within her mind. She gently bit her lower red lip as a complicated emotion flashed across her pretty eyes. Things would be all right if the queen of the Snake People tribe did not marry, but if she really gave her heart to someone, she'd be extremely loyal to that person. If her beloved died, her heart would die with him. This was the tradition of the Snake People tribe's Queen Medusa bloodline. Hence, Kaylin understood that she would never be able to forget that person in her lifetime. Despite having been apart for many years, that figure did not fade. Instead, that figure had been etched even deeper into her memory. Rumble. A deafening drum suddenly appeared in the distant black fog when Kaylin stood up. Immediately, many figures rushed out of the black fog and remained suspended in the sky. A powerful aura spread and covered the fortress. A strong-looking middle-aged man stood in the sky. He carried a huge golden blade. His eyes displayed an unusual excitement as he stared at the enchanting figure on the wall of the fortress. A loud laugh that was mixed with an overbearing tone resounded over the sky. "Ha ha, Medusa, have you thought things through? Are you going to surrender to my Profound Lion sect, or will my Profound Lion sect to slaughter everyone in your Yang Alliance?" A cold expression flashed across Kaylin's long narrow eyes when she heard the overbearing laughter that echoed across the sky. She gently took a step forward and glanced at the many figures in the distant sky. Her calm voice did not quiver even a little because of the current situation. Having managed the Yang Alliance for many years, she, who was already the queen of the Snake People tribe, would not feel even the slightest fear in such a situation. The Yang Alliance only has warriors who die in battle and no deserters who surrender. The golden-haired middle-aged man stood proudly in the sky. His large golden blade reflected a dense luster. He was not irritated when he heard Kaylin's words. Instead, he loudly laughed. That heat within his eyes became even more intense. A woman with strong character was more suitable to his taste. Who in the northwestern region was not aware of the cold and beautiful Kaylin of the Yang Alliance? If he was able to capture her in this battle and keep her as his exclusive domain, any other battle would be nothing. There were women in this world whose every frown and smile could stir a war. Clearly, Kaylin belonged to that category. Medusa, you should be clearly aware that the Yang Alliance is foolishly resisting. With your strength, it is impossible to compare with us. As long as your Yang Alliance agrees to submit to my Profound Lion sect and hand over all the members of the Xiao clan, I will use my position as the sect chief of the Profound Lion sect to guarantee that not a single person from the Yang Alliance will be her. The golden-haired man faintly laughed. Activate the formation. Cai Lin merely glanced at the man as he laughed. After which, a soft ice-cold cry was emitted from her mouth. Understood. Nervous responses immediately appeared from the surroundings following Cai Lin's soft cry. The sky outside of the fortress trembled, and an enormous energy barrier slowly covered the entire fortress. Finally, it stood between both armies. Archers, get ready. Kaylin once again coldly commanded. The creaking sound of bows being pulled immediately resonated again and again. Many 70 to 80 foot large ballistas were rapidly being loaded by a few people. 20-foot long sharp arrows emitted cold lusters as they stood at the ready. These ballistas and arrows had been built by the Yang Alliance using special materials. When they were used by a couple of Douling warriors, their might could penetrate a careless Do Huang and firmly nail that Do Huang to the ground. The golden-haired man involuntarily frowned when he saw that his voice had attracted these things instead of a response. Shitian, stop uttering such nonsense. If you like that woman, we will capture her and give her to you once the fortress falls. If those members of the Xiao clan end up escaping because of you, you will not be able to bear the responsibility. A cold and sinister voice suddenly sounded from behind while the golden-haired man was frowning. The expression of that middle-aged man called Shitian changed when he heard this voice. He turned his head and glanced at a black-clothed elder standing in the air. Many spiritual bodies were lingering around this elder. Their miserable screeches caused one to feel a chill within one's heart. This person's dark and stern face was filled with a familiarity. Upon closer observation, it was the 9th Tianzuan, who had once led the experts from the Hall of Souls to attack the Falling Star Pavilion. 9th Tianzuan worries too much. The current Yang Alliance is as good as dead. That little strength is not even worth mentioning in our eyes. How could it be possible to let the members of the Xiao clan escape? Shitian laughed. You should understand the consequence if any mishaps occur. 9th Tianzuan glanced at him and felt a little impatient. This person from this barbaric land only possessed the strength of a 6-star Dozun, yet he was incomparably arrogant. He was ignorant that this little strength was only an ordinary existence. Shitian dryly laughed. He also seemed to be aware of 9th Tianzuan's impatience. He didn't feel like uttering any more unnecessary words. He lifted his head and looked at the strong defense of the fortress. A moment later, he suddenly raised his hand as a loud cry was emitted. Medusa, your last chance has been forfeited by you. Everyone listen up. Attack. Charge. The ocean-like army outside of the fortress suddenly unleashed an earth-shaking battle cry after they heard Shitian's loud roar. The entire land quickly trembled. The seemingly endless army charged toward the fortress like floodwater with a surging desire to kill. The expression of everyone on the fortress was a little grave as they sensed the murderous aura that had suddenly spread over the sky. Their hands tightened on their weapons. Waves of the sound of rushing wind immediately erupted from the fortress when the floodwater-like army surged over. The huge arrows from earlier shot out like clusters of dark cloud. They landed on the Profound Lion sect's army and miserable cries suddenly sounded. Kaylin watched a countless number of soldiers get nailed into the ground from the wall. There was not the slightest fluctuation in her pretty eyes. She slowly lifted her head and looked at the sky. There were 100 people standing in the air at that spot. Behind these 100 people were densely packed Do Wangs flapping their Do Chi wings and Do Huangs. This unit was the most frightening. Attack. Break the energy barrier. Shitian watched the army below, which had been stopped 1,000 feet from the fortress. His face did not show the slightest pain. The army below consisted of people weaker than a Do Wang, making them cannon fodder. The ones who could truly shake the Yang Alliance were the elites in the sky. The experts in the sky finally began to form a semicircle with the wave of Shitian's hand. They swiftly approached the fortress. A loud cry sounded and wave after wave of powerful Do Chi pillars whistled through the sky. They rushed toward the Do Chi barrier from all directions. Bang! Countless energy pillars exploded against the energy barrier, causing it to fluctuate and form many circular ripples. Archers, change targets. All experts at the Do Wang class and above, retaliate and stabilize the energy barrier. Kaylin issued numerous orders in an orderly fashion as the Profound Lion sect attacked. She had become unusually familiar with these kinds of battles over the years. Kaylin's words had just sounded when the enormous arrows suddenly shifted. The densely packed arrow clouds spread apart in the sky. They were accompanied by the whistling sound of rushing wind as they ruthlessly shot toward those experts from the Profound Lion sect in the sky. Even though these experts were quite skilled, the bodies of quite a number of them were forcefully penetrated by this attack. Many bodies dropped to the ground like kites with broken strings. However, this bloody battle had caused the experts from both sides to turn mad from fighting. Many powerful Do-Chi figures whizzed toward the sky and ruthlessly took turns striking each other. Bang bang! Densely packed attacks continuously poured down on the energy barrier. The ripples on the barrier had become more intense. Due to the defenses of the energy barrier, the rate at which the profound lion sex experts fell clearly exceeded that of the Yang Alliance. They should be sufficiently exhausted. Xiao watched the continuously rippling energy barrier from the sky. He smiled while his hand slowly displayed a strange hand signal. The reason that the profound lion sect could dominate nearly half of the northwestern continent was not because of these Do Wangs and Do Huangs. Instead it was because of their elite Do Zongs and Do Zuns. After Xiao displayed this hand signal, the black fog behind him slowly tore apart. Nearly 100 figures slowly walked forward. There were 30 individuals with frighteningly strong auras. The appearance of these people caused this entire area to tremble a little. Kaylin and the others on the wall finally revealed a change in expression when these people appeared. These people would determine the victor of this battle. Rumble. The 100 figures slowly walked through the air. The enormous arrows that came flying over would automatically explode when they were 1,000 feet from them. Ha! The 100 figures finally halted when they were still 1,000 feet away from the fortress. They let out a cold cry in union. One could see wave after wave of majestic Do-Chi surging from their bodies before gathering in the sky. The Do-Chi in the sky formed a 10,000-foot wide energy beast. The enormous beast took shape. 200-foot-long white streams of smoke were released from its nostrils. After which, it walked through empty air and ruthlessly collided with the energy barrier of the fortress in front of countless pairs of shocked eyes. Although there were ferocious attacks coming from the fortress and smashing into the enormous beast, they were unable to block the beast. The enormous beast strode across the sky. It endured an incomparably crazy attack as it heavily knocked against the energy barrier in front of many pale faces. These pale faces belonged to the members of the Yang Alliance. Bang! The entire place seemed to grow quiet because of the collision. A circular energy ripple began to swiftly spread from the point of the collision. Finally, one heard a bang. The energy barrier in the sky emitted a loud explosive sound in front of many shocked gazes and suddenly exploded apart. Kaylin slowly clenched her hand when the energy barrier burst apart. An ice-cold voice resounded beside the ears of everyone on the wall. Everyone, the northwestern region might be large, but we no longer have any path of retreat because behind us lies our empire and its land. If your heart still possesses a fire, pick up your weapons and fight to the end. Roar. Fight till the end. That cold voice instantly caused the eyes of all the warriors from the Yang Alliance to redden. A trembling excitement spread from deep within his heart. It transformed into a furious roar echoed to the sky. Charred. A ferocious smile formed on Xiao's face as he watched the energy barrier shatter from the sky. He waved his hand down and coldly cried out. After Xiao's cry sounded, the many Do Wangs and Do Huangs, who had been blocked outside, charged forward with a ferocious roar. They charged toward the walls like a storm. Charred. Kaylin suddenly grabbed the long sword on her waist as she watched the human figures charging over with a surging desire to slaughter. A vast and mighty Do-Chi erupted from her body. She swung her sword forward and a 1,000-foot large sword glow hacked dozens of Do Huangs into two. At the same time, an ice-cold cry was emitted from her mouth. Bang! Numerous figures on the wall rose the moment Kaylin's cold cry sounded. They violently collided with the army of strong individuals from the profound lion sect, and the sounds of battle resonated around the sky. Little fairy doctor, I will leave Xiao to you. Guard her well. Kaylin's pretty eyes turned to the little fairy doctor by her side. She softly gave an order after taking in the situation of the battle, which had become extremely intense as the forces collided. The little fairy doctor softly sighed and nodded. Mummy, although little Xiao was young, she seemed to have sensed the difference in the atmosphere as she hurriedly hugged Kaylin's long leg. She lifted her small face and used her dark black teary eyes to look at her mother. Be obedient, don't be afraid. Mummy will go and look for you in a while. Kaylin gently patted little Xiao's head. A doting smile surfaced on her enchanting face. After which, she handed Xiao to the little fairy doctor. A reluctance to part with Xiao flashed across her pretty eyes. However, she clenched her teeth, turned around, and rushed into the air. A majestic Do-Chi surged and turned the few fastest expert Do Wangs in front into pools of blood. Xiao, do you dare step forward and fight with this queen? Kaylin stood in the empty air. Her icy-cold eyes shot toward Xiao in the distance as she coldly cried out. Ha ha, how can I reject the invitation of a beauty? Xiao laughed aloud upon hearing this offer. The golden blade in his hand danced and formed clusters of sparks. His feet stepped on empty air as he appeared in front of Kaylin within a couple of flashes. Both of his eyes were fiery hot as they studied the exceptionally delicate and voluminous figure in front of him. This figure could barely be hid by the tight-fitting red armor. Lust suddenly rose from his lower abdomen. Such an enchanting creature is really rare. It is really too good for this little brat called Xiao Yang. Once I snatch her, such a beauty will belong to me. Kaylin did not say any unnecessary words after seeing Shitian accept the battle. Do Qi surged from her body without being held back. The long sword in her hand was bared as her body moved. She appeared beside Shitian with lightning-like speed. The sharp sword struck at different angles and covered all the fatal spots on Shitian's body like a storm. Shitian's expression might appear calm when facing Kaylin's body, but his heart had become cautious. Kaylin was not weaker than him. Her battle experience was definitely greater than his after a countless number of battles. Hence, he did not dare to underestimate her. The golden blade danced like a windmill and blocked the sharp sword attacks. While Kaylin and Shitian were engaged in a big battle in the sky, the area within a 1,000-foot radius of the fortress was filled with chaotic fights. The experts from the Yang Alliance had all charged forward. Both parties clashed and a fiery-hot intense battle immediately erupted. During this intense battle between both parties, some experts who accidentally allowed their opponents to grab an opening and kill them. Even some elite dozongs could not protect themselves. Should they be unlucky, they would be surrounded and attacked by over a dozen people, which resulted in them withdrawing from serious injuries. Should one be unlucky, it was not rare for one to be killed on the spot. The ninth Tianzuan was suspended in the sky outside the chaotic battleground. His eyes were indifferent as he watched the battles that continuously erupted. A cold smile surfaced on his body. In his eyes, all the dead people were souls. They would be sucked into the ground by an unusual strength when they died. Even the weak souls did not escape. Fight. The more deaths the better. Ninth Tianzuan laughed in a cold voice. The more dead people, the better it was for the Hall of Souls. After a big battle, they would be able to absorb thousands or even tens of thousands of souls. This kind of speed was many times faster than in the past. Bang! The little fairy doctor was hugging little Xiao Xiao on the wall. Her expression was cold and indifferent as she swung out a poison chi pillar. It struck a profound lion sex expert, who had charged onto the wall until he spat out black blood and fell. After which, she allowed little Xiao Xiao to hide her eyes against her shoulder. Only then did she raise her head and look around her. Her heart involuntarily sank a little. The Yang Alliance might have had the advantage in terms of terrain, but the quantity and quality of their experts were far inferior to the profound lion sect. Although they were able to block the other party for some time, this could not last for long. At this moment, quite a number of places had been breached by the experts from the profound lion sect. These experts rushed onto the city wall and caused a lot of destruction. If some Yang Alliance experts did not attempt to block the enemy, it was likely that this destruction would have been many times greater. Little fairy Dr. Jejie, you should bring little Xiao Xiao and leave. This place will not be able to hold out for long. A soft cry suddenly sounded from beside the little fairy doctor. The little fairy doctor turned her head and found that Qing Lin had spoken. At this moment, Qing Lin had already summoned all the experts that she could control. With the mysterious strength she possessed, this part of the wall was a lot stronger than the other places. You are thinking of leaving? How can it be so easy? Qing Lin's cry had just sounded when a couple of ghost-like figures suddenly rushed over. They remained suspended in the air before letting out a dark laugh. Elite Dozuns. The little fairy doctor knit her brows slightly upon seeing these few figures. The profound lion sect had begun to use these experts. A couple of Dozuns below 3 stars dare to act presumptuous here. Qing Lin coldly laughed. Her body moved, and she charged forward. The controlled experts shot out at the same time. They charged and surrounded those few Dozuns. Little fairy doctor, leave. Tianhuazunja had also appeared beside the little fairy doctor when Qing Lin had acted to block those elite Dozuns. He spoke in a deep voice while his eyes stared intently into the distance. The large group of Dozuns from the profound lion sect had already begun to join the battle. With the strength of these people, any ordinary defenses were basically useless. Tianhuazunja did not wait for the little fairy doctor after his voice sounded. With a wave of his hand, a couple of figures came rushing down from the wall. They appeared beside him. These were all the elite Dozuns within the Yang Alliance. Although their numbers were far from being comparable to the profound lion sect, they still needed to fight. Charge! Tianhuazunja cried out with a deep voice. His feet pressed into the ground as his body took the lead to charge forward. A couple of elite Dozuns followed close behind him. This little girl possesses an extremely powerful spiritual strength. It is the first time that this old self has seen anyone in possession of such spiritual strength at such an age. The little fairy doctor's eyes dimmed slightly when she saw this scene. She hugged little Xiao Xiao and began to hurriedly pull back. However, she had just withdrawn by 1,000 feet when a dense black fog rushed over. A shader-looking old man rushed out from the fog. He emitted a strange laugh as the chain in his hand ruthlessly shot toward little Xiao Xiao in the little fairy doctor's embrace. Bastard! The little fairy doctor suddenly became furious when she saw that damn old fellow attack a child. She waved her hand and a lethal poisonous do-chi pillar shot out and knocked the chain aside. Her toes pressed on the ground, and she once again pulled back instead of giving chase. Where can you flee to? The little fairy doctor had just pulled back when another black figure arrived with a fierce wind. Sharp wind was released from a palm and ruthlessly slammed toward the little fairy doctor. While this black figure was attacking, that sinister-looking old man once again rushed over. Those two unleashed attacks with their full strengths on both sides of the little fairy doctor, surrounding her in the process. Bang! Xiao Li, catch her! The little fairy doctor's expression changed slightly when faced with the combined attack of two elite 6-star Dozuns. The corner of her eye glazed at Xiao Li, who was a short distance away. She flung her hand and a gentle wind delivered little Xiao Xiao away from her. At the same time, an extremely lethal poisonous do-chi surged out of her body in all directions. It received the combined attacks of two elite Dozuns. A short distance away, Xiao Li had noticed the little fairy doctor was surrounded and attacked. He hurriedly moved when he saw her toss little Xiao Xiao his way. Within a couple of leaps, he had arrived behind little Xiao Xiao. However, a ghost-like figure reached little Xiao Xiao when Xiao Li had just extended his hand to grab her. A sharp wind slammed into Xiao Li's chest with lightning-like speed. The powerful force caused Xiao Li to spit out a mouthful of blood as his body flew backwards. Bastard! Xiao Li's eyes turned blood-red when he saw that this fellow was intending to grab little Xiao Xiao after having launched a sneak attack. That skinny old man laughed strangely, after which he turned around and reached toward little Xiao Xiao in the air. Kaylin, who was battling Shetian in the distance, immediately turned pale when she saw what was happening. Medusa, surrender quickly. Otherwise, do not blame the old me for being vicious. The skinny old man grabbed little Xiao Xiao's clothes in front of many shocked eyes. He stared at Kaylin with a ferocious face, but just as he spoke his final word, a chill suddenly appeared deep within his heart. It had just materialized when an icy hand suddenly appeared around his throat without any forewarning. After which, it ruthlessly clamped down like metal pliers. The sound of bones breaking could be as the old man's neck was broken. The peripheral vision of the old man glanced over just before he died. An unfamiliar black-clothed man with an indifferent expression had unknowingly appeared behind him. The black-clothed man, who had suddenly appeared, randomly tossed aside the old man's corpse. After which, he extended his arm and hugged that little girl, who was using her large dark black to stare at him. A gentle smile was revealed on his indifferent face. Raising his head, he studied Kaylin and the others in the distance, whose bodies had suddenly stiffened. With a faint smile, his gentle voice was slowly transmitted into the Kaylin's ears. Sorry, I have returned a little late, Xiao Yang? Third brother? Alliance chief. Many people quickly became stunned when they saw the black-clothed young man suddenly appear on the wall. A moment later, a wild joy abruptly surged. Many different forms of addresses suddenly reverberated over the fortress. Although the young man appeared to have matured after a couple of years, his extremely familiar face was still recognized by many people in an instant. Xiao Yang merely grinned when he heard these joyous exclamations. He was just about to speak when his brows were slightly lifted. A figure appeared behind him in a ghost-like fashion. A sharp palm wind ruthlessly slammed toward the Xiao Yang's back. Be careful. The sudden sneak attack caused many people to be shocked, causing many of them to hurriedly warn him. Bang! A muffled sound suddenly appeared when the cry appeared. Everyone's faces became stunned when they saw the expert from the Profound Lion sect, who was at the Dozun class, fly backwards without any reason. Blood was spat out of that person's mouth. His eyes were filled with shock. He couldn't even see when Xiao Yang had attacked. Xiao Yang did not even turn around as he injured an elite Dozun into vomiting blood and withdrawing. He lifted his head and glanced around, paying attention to where the Yang Alliance was being overwhelmed. He gently waved his hand. Begin the offensive. Bang! An earth-shaking energy undulation suddenly erupted from the air a short distance away after Xiao Yang waved his hand. Rushing sounds, wind sound appeared one after another, and everyone present saw dozens of figures stepping through the air in the sky. They appeared like falling stars as they appeared above the wall within a couple of flashes. Elite Dozuns. The strong individuals from both the Yang Alliance and the Profound Lion sect suddenly inhaled a breath of cool air when these dozens of figures appeared above the wall because they had discovered that this large group consisted of only elite Dozun. What a frightening lineup! Xiao Ding, Hai Buodong, and the rest stared at the human figures suspended in the sky with stunned expressions. There were at least 30 people present. In other words, there were at least 30 Dozuns. Such a terrifying lineup could dominate any faction in the northwestern region. This person, it has been a short few years since we last met. Just what level has he reached? Many eyes looked at the black-clothed young man hugging little Xiao Xiao. Some shock surged within their hearts. After which, a joy from having escaped a calamity quietly filled their hearts. They were still clearly aware that the profound lion sect was extremely powerful, but their hearts inexplicably felt safer when they looked at Xiao Yang. Ha ha, everyone, let's attack. Allow us taste just how strong the Dozuns of the northwestern part of the continent are. The eldest Hu brother laughed toward the sky. He stepped through empty air and rushed toward the experts from the profound lion sect. The remaining experts behind him also laughed and shot forward. Monstrous Dochis shook the fortress. Xiao Yang merely smiled at the changing situation. He withdrew his eyes and looked at the girl in his arms. She had been staring at him with her large dark black eyes for a long time. He softly asked, "What is your name?" "Xiao Xiao." The little girl stared at Xiao Yang. Although she wasn't familiar with his appearance, a special feeling of being related, which originated from her bloodline, caused her to possess no caution towards Xiao Yang. Her reply was forthright but timid. An unusual feeling surged within Xiao Yang's heart when he saw the cute little Xiao Xiao. He smiled and pinched her little nose before asking, "Do you know who I am?" Little Xiao Xiao seriously stared at Xiao Yang. A moment later, she finally used an extremely soft whisper to reply, "Are you father?" The soft word was transmitted into Xiao Yang's ear, causing his heart to violently tremble. A feeling surged around his body like floodwater. An extremely brilliant and warm smile slowly bloomed on his face. "Good girl. Lad, you are finally willing to return." A joyous loud cry suddenly resounded while Xiao Yang was hugging little Xiao Xiao. He turned his head and watched a man rapidly roll his wheelchair over. Some excitement surged in his heart as he laughed. "Big brother, second brother, how are the both of you?" "You." Xiao Li's originally dark and cold face was currently filled with joy. He charged over and violently pulled Xiao Yang into a big hug. His hand forcefully patted Xiao Yang's shoulder. "Are you fine?" Xiao Li looked at Xiao Yang in front of him. Even someone as cold as him became involuntarily excited at this moment. He started to laugh. Xiao Yang nodded. Everyone had experienced some changes over these few years. However, the only thing that had difficulty changing was this relationship between brothers. "It's good that you are back. It is still not too late." Xiao Ding studied Xiao Yang, who was momentarily speechless. Xiao Ding smiled as he commented on the situation. "Haha, Alliance Chief, you have really performed your role as a hands-off leader very well." Another few figures hurried over while Xiao Yang nodded. The familiar laughter caused Xiao Yang to feel startled. He lifted his head and saw many familiar faces: Ice Emperor Haibuodong, Fa Ma, and the Pill King of the Jiomar Empire, Jiu He. "Xiao Xiao." A red figure rushed over while Xiao Yang was cupping his hands to these old familiar figures. She pulled Xiao Xiao into her embrace. After which, her pretty eyes continued to sweep over Xiao Xiao's body, afraid of even the slightest mishap occurring to her. Xiao Yang studied this bewitching woman in front of him. She still appeared delicate and voluminous despite wearing tight-fitting red armor. A gentleness also appeared in his eyes as he softly called out, "Kaylin." Kaylin's lovely figure stiffened when she heard Xiao Yang's voice. She finally lifted her head. Her pretty eyes were somewhat complicated as they stared at the black-clothed young man in front of her. She immediately rubbed little Xiao Xiao's head while she remarked, "I thought that you wouldn't return." Kaylin's voice contained some anger while it also hid some grievances. During these years, she, as a woman, had to not only raise this child, she also had to develop the Yang Alliance. She had worried over all these matters, and these burdens had all been left to her by this man. "Third brother, sister-in-law has had a hard time during these years. You should not let her down. Otherwise, I and your big brother will be the first to oppose." Xiao Li patted Xiao Yang's shoulder. He spoke in a low tone when he saw Kaylin. "That's right. We have Kaylin to thank for all these years." Haibuodong and the others by the side nodded in agreement. Xiao Yang was quiet. He searched Kaylin's tightly curled lips and an apology suddenly surged in his heart. He took 2 steps forward, extended his hand, and gently hugged that soft, delicate snake-like waist. He ignored her struggle and pulled her into an embrace before he softly said, "I'm sorry. It has been hard on you." Even someone as strong as Kaylin sensed her nose turning runny when she heard the soft voice beside her ear. Regardless of how strong she acted in the eyes of the public, she was still a woman. Moreover, she was a woman who had settled down. Her heart would inevitably feel some grievances when her man was away for many years, but these grievances suddenly vanished upon hearing these 2 soft sentences. "Do not think that I will let you off because of this." Even though the grievances in her heart had disappeared, the stubborn Kaylin still grit her teeth and snapped. Her cold yet pretty face turned a little flush as she freed herself from Xiao Yang's hand. She was an extremely strong person in the eyes of everyone from the Yang Alliance. Hence, she was unwilling to be seen in Xiao Yang's embrace like his little woman. "Leave everything else to me." Xiao Yang smiled before gently pinching little Xiao Xiao's small face. He said, "Good daughter, you must follow your mother." "Father, do your best." Little Xiao nodded and spoke in a soft, timid manner. Be careful. There are many elite Dozuns on the other side, Kaylin said with some worry. Xiao Yang smiled and stepped into the air. He slowly walked away from the wall while his eyes glanced at the large golden-haired man. That man was gloomily staring at him a short distance away. You are Xiao Yang? The alliance chief of the Yang Alliance. Shi stared intently at Xiao Yang. He had watched Xiao Yang hug Kaylin earlier, and an intense jealousy rose within his heart. Even though he had yet to take the mysterious Yellow Fortress, he had already thought of Kaylin as his. How could he endure her being tainted by others? Xiao Yang acted as though he did not hear Shi cold cry. Shi immediately became furious upon seeing Xiao Yang ignore him. The large blade in his hand suddenly hacked down in a ruthless fashion. 1,000-foot-long blade glow ruthlessly slashed at Xiao Yang's head. Be careful. He is the sect chief of the Profound Lion sect, an elite 6-star Dozun. Kaylin and the others on the wall hurriedly warned Xiao Yang when they saw him ignore Shi. The golden blade glow ruthlessly struck Xiao Yang's body after everyone's warning. However, the unusually powerful attack failed to force Xiao Yang back even half a step. How is this possible? Shi was not the only one stunned when he saw this. Even Kaylin's group had completely astounded faces. Shi attack was something even a 7-star Dozun did not dare to receive head-on without putting up any defenses. Xiao Yang gently flicked his sleeve as his palm was slowly swung toward Shi. A frighteningly hot wind penetrated through the air and gathered into a large fire hand in front of Shi with lightning-like speed. It slammed into Shi body. As the palm slammed down, the Doqi defenses lingering around Shi body appeared paper-thin. They were destroyed in an instant, and a frightening wind poured into his body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. The clothes on his body were blasted into ashes while his body transformed into a fireball that violently flew backwards. Finally, his collided with the ground. Hiss. The experts from both the Yang Alliance and the Profound Lion sect suddenly inhaled a deep breath of chilly air. The sect chief of the Profound Lion sect was unable to receive even a strike from Xiao Yang. 9th Tianzuan, show yourself. Xiao Yang lifted his head after randomly finishing off Shi. His eyes locked on the distant black fog, and a faint voice suddenly resounded over the sky like thunder. This video will end here.